Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last session for the day for EAMC's first virtual conference. My name is Jonathan Huth. I'll be moderating this fireside chat about email. I'm the founder and CEO of Conversion Digital, where we help marketers unleash the potential of email through a combination of smart strategy, great design, and flawless technology. So you've seen a sampling of our email in our work as sponsors of the EAMC. You may have seen the revamped email template that went out for the EAMC. The EAMC, we did the know before you go email from last week, and this morning's conference login details email was had our hand in it. So for the next 30 minutes or so, we are going to dive deep into the what I call often neglected world of email for event and arena marketing. And I say neglected because email is usually the last thing on our to-do lists, and it's usually a last-minute request or even a contractual demand from promoters. So, and compared to other channels, it can be a way more complicated just to ensure things like the links are working, the images are rendering properly, regulations are followed, and that its design cuts through the inbox clutter. So we hope you leave today's session with a few practical tips to take back to your organization to help get your email not only working harder, but working more smoothly to drive results. In our chat today, to take you, and I couldn't resist, to take you inside the velvet rope to the front of the email stage. We have on the panel today, Adam Armit, the manager of live event and venue marketing at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, MLSE, operators of Scotiabank Arena, Coca-Cola Coliseum, Budweiser Stage, among others, and Mark Delost, Conversion Digital Senior Account Director. So, I will, on a housekeeping note, please jump into the Q&A with any questions. We'll try to guide the conversation, and in the spirit of live entertainment, a lot of the questions that we'll be going through aren't necessarily scripted, so please jump in, ask questions if you got them, and we'll take the conversation in that direction. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off with just a general question for Mark to get us rolling, to talk about the improvements of in email and any best practices that have been adopted by Maple Leaf Sports around email.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hey, everyone. So just to give you all a bit of background on kind of what we do with Adam's team and MLSC. So we've been working with Adam and his group for about 2 years now. The last year and a bit have been interesting, to say the least. But we deploy all of the emails for all of the teams or brands that fall under the MLSE umbrella. That includes the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Raptors, Toronto FC, the soccer team, the Toronto Argos, the CFL football team, as well as the basketball and hockey farm teams, the Marlies and the 905. All that said, we probably do the most with the live event team, and everything probably happens the quickest with them as well. So
very true.
You know, I think just MLSE in general, we deploy around 900 unique emails a year, and with Adam's team, it can fluctuate based on the seasons and concert season, but we probably do in and around 200, 250 emails a year. So definitely a lot of emails coming in and out. Prior to Conversion jumping on board, maybe Adam, if you want to just inform kind of how your team looked.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. I wish we could see everybody in a regular event hall, face to face, but hopefully next year. Yeah. So before we brought on Conversion, it was very unsophisticated, I'd say. Jonathan really set it off the top with, it's one of those methods that is kind of last to think about. And I know I have this conversation often with a good amount of other venue marketers where, we don't necessarily have a full strategy around it a lot of times. And yet it's one of our only ways to really communicate with our fans. And so it's been very unsophisticated for a lot of venues. And I think to this day, it still is in a lot of ways. I definitely think we're making the right steps at Scotiabank Arena and the rest of our properties on the right track. I think there's so much more untapped potential that, like you said, the last year and a half has been a bit of a waiting game in a certain way. But, before we decided to go agency side for this, we did have it, internal a little bit, but as you mentioned, 900 emails a year between Toronto Maple Leafs, the Raptors, and so on and so forth. That's a lot to handle. And so it was kind of all over the place a little bit. We scrapped by and we did what we could, but when we think of everything from database management to the design, like those are wildly different things across the spectrum, and trying to make those all line up and make something that looks good but is functional and hitting the right people with the right thing is definitely a science that I can definitely say that the best thing we've ever done was to try and not be experts at it and to make sure that we're employing experts. And so, I think there's definitely more that we can do together, and excited to be able to do that.
I have a quick question. And describing how it was, what were how would you typically do an email before? Like who would do it, or where would it fit in their priorities, and what else would they be working on?
Yeah, it definitely kind of evolved. We used to have one or two people on our marketing team. Now, keeping in mind, our marketing team as a whole at MLSE is much larger than most arenas are. So to compare, arena to arena is a bit different also. But a lot of times you have just the venue marketer deploying these in MailChimp or something like that. And for us, we were lucky enough to have somebody on our marketing team that was kind of dedicated to it. But yeah, a lot of times it's MailChimp or Constant Contact. And I know if we were to take a poll of everybody here today, I bet you that's exactly where it lines up.
Right.
And
Mark, back to you, Mark. The other things that we found when we first started working with MLSE that you would say needed the most help, or where we added the most support?
Absolutely. As Adam alluded to, it's often one or two unicorns who are kind of doing everything from, the design to the coding to the QAing their own work to the campaign setup and deployment and measurement. It's a lot. And when you're doing that many emails, it's tough to even really hang on, let alone get out, good quality communication. So, when we came on board, it was really establishing a whole new process. So at Conversion, we have, an entire team to support Adam and MLSE. That includes, an email developer, a designer, a QA specialist, a data analyst, a Salesforce consultant, copywriter if it's needed, account project management. So, each of those are specialties that our team brings to the table that sometimes all of them are required for communication. Sometimes it's just creative and dev and QA and setup and go. But the biggest thing was just establishing and formulating a new process. When we came in, things were just kind of not really scripted. Briefs were kind of just flying by a desk and, hey, I need this email out tomorrow, and that was kind of it. And it was different for every team. So, the thing we wanted to come in and establish was a more formal process of how to request it and, the steps you go through. And I know with Adam, I know it made a big change, because one of the things that we implemented was, giving everyone knows that, these concert announcements and events, speed to market is critical. So it's got to go out as soon as possible. And one of the things was just ensuring your team had enough time to get the approvals for it, right? So something as simple as getting you a JPEG of what it looks like. Before that wasn't done. It was just jump to dev and deploy. So
yeah, 100%. And I think that process brings up a great point of what we needed to do. And I think I challenge everybody that's listening in is to take a look at your strategy of what you're doing, right? What is that process? Do you have a process? If you don't have a process, that's probably the red flag saying that you should probably create a process, and what emails you're sending out and why. right? And so the amount of crazy amount of emails that we were sending out that we didn't really even know that we were or why was eye-opening to me. And so, you know, you often break down all these marketing teams at venues and teams into, you know, some arenas are wearing the same hat where you're doing the concerts and the teams. Sometimes it's completely separate. And in our case, you know, Leafs have their brand team, Raptors have their brand team. We're the side for the live entertainment side of things. But when you look at all of that, there's cracks things can fall between. And so the amount of times that we had to sit down and really look at what we're doing and why we're doing it was kind of crazy. And so that's where it was nice having you guys come on board and really sit us down and say, okay, well, what are we doing? Like, how many emails are you sending? What are you doing? Why are you doing those? And then really being able to take a step back and be a little bit more smart with it. And I think it's also a bit unique in Canada for the Americans that are watching that have a little bit more freedom. We have the Canadian anti-spam legislation, or CASL for short, which really handcuffs us on what we're allowed to do from a legal perspective. We can't just be emailing fans or past purchasers with whatever we want. So it kind of forces us into a little bit more of a strategic lens. And, you know, that's something that was, you know, step number one for us to do. And I would encourage everybody to do that if you haven't, is just a bit of an audit of, you know, what are you doing currently?
Awesome. And sorry, Jonathan, I'll just jump in.
Go back. Yeah, go for it.
So just to add to, you know, Adam's comment, like, we didn't really want to come in and, you know, reinvent the wheel, you know, along with Adam and his team. We looked at what's there and, you know, just looked at ways to improve it. So we, you know, looked at, you know, how can we make sure these emails are going out, you know, as quick as possible. So templating was a quick thing for us. You know, we worked with Adam to develop a, you know, revamped set of emails where, you know, our promoter images were all a certain size. So, you know, we're getting those images from the promotions team and they're already spec'd to exactly what we need. So just trying to truncate the steps that we need to get the emails out.
Yeah, that really made it a lot easier when we decided to A, redesign our newsletter, B, keep it in a newsletter, which is like my biggest thing is no more e-cards of each concert going out. We've started to train our fans where a newsletter goes out on Wednesdays, pre-sales are on Thursdays, fans have their code, but then we're also putting in that spec that your team has created for that card to know that we're going to need this image. So at the same time we're getting the website image and the social images as we're creating that one and being able to put that process through and being able to really work quickly in that way.
So Adam, is that in effect creating a relationship between the venue and the fan as opposed to the event and the fan?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of our goal. When we look at, once again, why are we doing things and our strategy, you know, we need to start as marketers as a whole. There's a lot of a shift in the industry, and I know for us, and my focus is to really take a lot more of a detailed approach to the commercial aspect of everything that we're doing. Marketing is a cost center. We always, you know, have been a cost center for years, right? We don't generate revenue typically other than selling tickets and supporting that way. And so when we look at our, you know, why are we doing this? We're trying to figure out how we're commercializing and monetizing everything that we're doing. And as opposed to just sending an email to tell people about a show. And obviously that's going to be our number one revenue driver and is always the bread and butter and base of what we do. How are we creating that that relationship with our fan to then be able to learn more about them, to be able to then tap into that just a little bit more and then start to unlock that and what's that next step? So how are we getting to book a reservation for a restaurant beforehand or after the show and so on and so forth? And so it's a great point. Yeah, we're trying to build that relationship with the fan as opposed to just the show with the fan. And obviously there's going to be the affinity with the concert and that fan, but the challenge that we always have on the live side that I'm sure everybody can relate to is when you're going out to a hockey fan, that hockey fan is likely a member or there's always that affinity there, you know, if you're talking to. On the live side, our challenge is we're always talking to somebody new. A lot of times fans coming in the building have never been to the building. And so trying to build that relationship and weave that favorite artist of theirs through our building to be able to then, you know, catch them in the funnel is the goal.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Adam. Just looking at our Q&A, we've got a couple of questions came in. One is to confirm that Adam, it is in fact your birthday today, so happy birthday.
Yes, thank you.
The second question is from Gerald Parker asked, timing is everything. When is the best time and day to release your email campaign? And I'll just quickly jump in with my maybe trite response, which is timing might be everything, but testing is actually everything. And that might lead to the answer. And I'll maybe throw it to Mark or Adam to comment on what the best time of day is to release a campaign.
That's exactly it, Jonathan. I mean, it's you need to test. So, you got to find out when is the best day and the best time to reach your audience. With the Live Insider for Scotiabank Arena and all of MLSE's properties, we tested different days, we tested different times, and we netted out on, I think it was 7 a.m. on Wednesdays was our, we had our highest open rate and highest click to open rates on that day. We're hovering right in around benchmarks, which in the entertainment industry are around 16 to 18% opens. Click to open rates can vary, obviously just depending on the show. If you have a huge act like Taylor Swift or Post Malone or whoever, you're going to see those click-through rates spike. And but it's really about testing, and not only just testing the day and time, testing things like the subject lines as well. Your subject lines and pre-headers are critical to success.
It's funny, like I remember when we went through the A/B testing, and I was expecting there to be like wildly different results for certain different things, and it was all pretty relative across the board. And we obviously netted out at Wednesday at 7 a.m. for a reason, but I thought it was going to be drastically different in certain different ways, especially when we look at changing the subject line. It turns out that keeping just a generic subject line for our newsletter was the way to go. So instead of announcing Pink, Pearl Jam, and anybody else, that didn't perform as well as your weekly concert update or anything along those lines. So that was a bit shocking to me. But yeah, and every market's going to be different, right? Your fan base is going to be different. So the testing is exactly the way to do it. That A/B test is going to be different everywhere.
Okay, another question to talk about subject lines more. And I know Mark knows more about subject lines than maybe anyone, but maybe Mark, some of the best practices around subject lines and what to do and not to do.
Absolutely. I mean, keeping them short and descriptive, it really depends on what that communication is. I think letting the recipients know what's inside this newsletter. With the Live Insider, we go out every week with the exact same subject line, which in this case is exclusive pre-sales offers and much more. And then we use our pre-header to dive into what it is. So as Adam mentioned a little earlier, we've kind of trained our audience to know when our email's coming, what time, what the subject line is. And those are all things that we've tested. But with that being said, personalization, if you have it, add it to the subject line. We always see bumps in open rates if you can add first name in there. You can always try something different, whether it's an emoji. You definitely don't want to be the brand that shoots out an emoji in a subject line every single message. But if you're looking to wake up subscribers or just change it up, I think you definitely want to test that.
Is just building on that with my own question, which is there anything that you shouldn't do that might get the email caught in spam filters or not get through the email service provider?
In terms of, so again, I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot of technical items there with your sender reputation and your ISP. It's not just your subject line. It could be, maybe your emails too image heavy or whatever it might be. So, that's a bit of a tougher question to ask without diving into it, Jonathan.
Okay. Park it. We'll take that up on the sponsor booth after the session. Let's maybe talk a bit more about results. So what campaigns or what emails have worked best for Scotiabank Arena, for you, Adam, and in terms of if you can speak to just actual, if we know the open rates or the click-throughs, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to Mark to know our specific stats. But I think, like I said earlier, we're very happy that we moved to a newsletter model as opposed to sending out e-cards every single time. And I don't know too much about whether or not our open rates drastically changed, but I know that our unsubscribes drastically changed. And so rather than peppering somebody with 5 emails in a week about a single show each, we've really condensed those and been able to make sure that, once again, training the fans and realizing that they're not gonna, it actually has value that they're gonna want, and there's something in there that maybe not be for them that they can forward off to their friends, because it's not something that's just a burden. And so we've actually really not dove into different demographics of our list or anything like that. It is a wide spanning list to make sure that everybody's kind of getting it, but it's low lift for the fan to get in their inbox, only 1 email a week. In terms of really the best results, no surprises coming from our know before you go emails, and that's where we really need to dive in even more as bigger opportunities, with the caveat in Canada of Castle and it needing to be important event information, and it can't be sponsored messages throughout it, but a restaurant reservation is an important piece of information for your experience. And so it's kind of learning those different, tips and tricks that we can go through. But, when I'm looking at our best results, it's typically just our typical go-to newsletter emails versus the e-cards. There's so many more different emails that we send out that, don't really even get kind of caught into this conversation that are something to consider. But I would say for the most part, defer to Mark on kind of the specifics of those results, though.
The weekly newsletter, I mean, we consistently will see around 16-18% open rates, which is hovering around industry benchmarks for the entertainment industry. Click to open rates can be anywhere between 5 to 10% for those. So we use click to open rate just as a general best practice, as whether the email was well performing. So that just takes from those who opened the email, how many clicked on it, so we can see whether the information was relevant to them. And with something like a concert announcement, it might just be that none of the events that week were of interest. But I think in terms of engagement, like you said, Adam, the know before you go, we see 50+% open rates, click to open rates between 30 to 40%, which are extremely high. But that said, we know that segment is highly interested. They're going to the event that night, so it's all about timing that email. Send when do you send it? You send it close to the event. I believe ours went out. If there was a show at 7, we're sending at 5 p.m. And it's all about including that relevant information, what they need to know. Where's parking? Is there a camera policy? Is there a bag policy? We have an app download and call out to pre-order your food and beverage and your merch.
Which was all pre-COVID. So imagine the results post-COVID, because that email is going to be even more important than it has been in the past, because fans are now going to be wondering all of this information on our new policies when we come back. And I'm sure that people are running into the same issue where, how are we telling our fans and getting them to know everything about mask rules or anything like that? And this know before you go email is going to be more important than ever. And so not only sending it once, but sending it 48 hours, 24 hours, an hour before, and continuing to remind and be able to hit different information is going to be key, which I look forward to. Like, that excites me, because how often do we have a fan that actually wants to open an email? It's such a challenge that we try and wrap our heads around. And I'm hoping, and it might be, hopefully I'm not wrong, but a fan is hopefully going to look at that and go, oh yeah, okay, great. This is all the information I'm going to need, because I have no idea what rules are for anything anymore, right? So hopefully our rates go way up at our first event passed. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, okay, another question from the panel or from the audience. Any tips for Gmail and getting people to move campaigns to their primary inbox instead of the promotions tab?
Again, a little bit of a tough one, especially with Gmail, since they introduced this a little while ago. But again, you can test different things. So whether it's putting some messaging up, in your header or in your footer, your developers should be able to target. If you don't want that message to show up for everyone, you should be able to target just for Gmail. There are other things that you can do in Gmail where within the promotions tab, I believe just on mobile right now, you can have you may have seen it in your, on your Gmail app. Some of the emails stand out. They have a little picture and, there might be a badge that says special offer. So there's some extra code. It's called Gmail annotated promotions that you can add to your emails to help them stand out specifically in Gmail.
Cool. Great. Just jumping back to measurement, Mark, you talked about opens and click to opens. How should a venue marketer or event marketer measure conversions, given the name of our company? What are some of the ways that that we've seen conversions measured and beyond just the opens and clicks?
Absolutely. I mean, revenue tracking is crucial. You want to see how much revenue is generating from your emails. So, when you're building your links, you're going to want to put UTM codes or tracking codes on it. So obviously, Adam, you can probably talk to it more, but email is just one cog in the wheel. You're also promoting on social and maybe on your website. So you want to know where those ticket purchases are coming from.
Yeah, that's the same thing like with came from codes and stuff, linking into Ticketmaster and being able to pull all together. That's definitely something that I would want people to start to look at more is that reporting function of it, right? A lot of times we hit send on the email and it's gone into cyberspace and it's done and we've checked the box for the promoter and all that. But going back to really trying to prove and drive revenue, I think that's going to be a great tool for people to go in and actually start to track, is this actually turning into results? And we can look at click-throughs and we can look at that sort of thing, but then is that selling tickets or is that selling merchandise or whatever you're trying to achieve, and being able to track it is going to help you then answer questions, right? So going back to step number one that we kind of talked about, where you got to be a little bit more analytical and you got to be a little bit more strategic about it, being able to say, okay, well, does our open rate match our conversion rate, and does the ticket sales reflect that? And likely they should be in and around the same to make sense. But if not, why is that, right? There's a lot of different things. I feel like we could go on in this panel for probably 2 hours and not even circle back on the same thing, because it's such a large area for all of us as marketers, and there's so much more that everybody can be doing.
And that, my friends, is the end of our 30 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Mark. Thanks to everyone for sticking it out to the very end of the first day. So thanks for attending. And if you didn't get a chance to answer, to get your question asked through the Q&A, we've got a record of those. Please come to our booth, our virtual booth. We'll be on the site in our booths tomorrow and Thursday, 2 to 3 Eastern Standard Time PM, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. While you're there, you can ask your questions. Mark and I will probably both be there. You can also get we call it a do-it-yourself email checklist, which may answer some of the questions, or you can sign up for a free one-on-one 30-minute consultation, or just drop us an email anytime. So that's it for today. So thanks, everyone. I'll hope to see everybody at the hotel bar later with Dave Grohl and myself. I wish, but maybe next year.
You never know. You never know. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. And I definitely have to say, anybody that can drop over, definitely do it. Highly recommend. Take the time and learn a little bit more, and good luck.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.